ready to talk hockey. Straight from the Oilers studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, and welcome to Oilers Live. We're going live here with Jeff Ponder of St. Louis Blues. Let's Go Blues Radio tonight. So he's going to join us. We've got Jeff on the line. Welcome, Jeff, to the live stream tonight.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Much appreciated.
So we've got this is the first time I've actually had somebody on that from the visiting team, or we were the visiting team, I guess, tonight. Not a great result for you, although you did get a point out of it. Exciting game. It looked like it was going to be a blowout after that first period. What's your thoughts on the game?
Well, as you said, hopes for the team coming out of the first. They've kind of had some slow starts this year, but we've also discovered as people who've watched this team that there's no such thing as a safe lead, and that was the case tonight. Definitely the Blues kind of collapsing in on themselves as they've done before, but couple calls that didn't go their way. I think that's fair to say. The interference call against Tarasenko could have gone either way, and then the play in overtime where Shen that was a bad call. A bad play. He should not have tried to steal the puck in that manner. But then later, after that power play had ended, you had the play with Ryan O'Reilly. So again, just a couple breaks that didn't go the Blues' way, but you can't blame that on officiating. That's a game where they had to close it out, and they hit a couple posts. They had a good chance there at the end of the third, and could not come up with the big goal when they needed it.
Yeah, you know what? That's a pretty good assessment of the game tonight. I mean, the Oilers definitely came out flat. Last night when we recorded the podcast pregame on Let's Go Blues Radio, and for those listeners right now, I guess I should introduce Jeff. He's a longtime podcaster. I think you've been podcasting before podcasting was cool. Not that it's cool now, but
yeah, we still got a ways to go there.
yeah. But it was you've been doing it now since how long? 2011. You guys started?
2011. Yeah, we actually started. It was the year the Blues hired Ken Hitchcock.
There we go. So if you guys want to hear, we talked a little bit about some of the things that the Blues and the Oilers had in common, like Brathwaite and Curtis Joseph.
I like that's the first name you bring up.
Yeah, Curtis Joseph and Grant Fear. And special homage to the great one behind you there today, Jeff. Thanks for putting that up. Mr. 99, Wayne Gretzky.
Former St. Louis Blue Wayne Gretzky.
That is right. Yeah, actually, we always forget that. That's
I think even he forgot that.
Yeah. We're trying to. Yeah. So anyway, you know what? Thanks for that's the game in a nutshell. I think it was. I thought you guys and normally, to be fair, if you weren't on the show, I probably wouldn't even talk about this non-call in overtime. But you guys got ripped off there in overtime. Clefbaum was draped all over. Who was that he?
O'Reilly.
And, I mean, I think 9 out of 10 times they call that. And I was a little bit surprised. And most Oilers fans would tell you that we feel like we get the short end of the stick most games. That was not the case tonight. We've got a couple lucky calls. Even the penalty against the Blues in overtime was, could have gone either way. It was a close game. It was a good game. Oilers needed it, I guess, to kind of stay in the mix. And it looks so far tonight like the Oilers aren't getting any help with San Jose and Anaheim.
Of course not. Those dang California teams.
Yeah. I know.
No,
It's tough.
that the non-call on O'Reilly, I will agree. And you and I were messaging back and forth about that. That definitely should have been a penalty. Not saying that in every single game that's a penalty, but I felt that the game was kind of called a little tight. They were calling a lot of stuff and I mentioned the Tarasenko interference call. You mentioned the Shen. I thought the Shen in overtime was warranted. But I mean that play there at the end with O'Reilly and Clefbaum, that was one that actually shocked me that was not a call given how the rest of the game went. But again, anybody in the NHL, any head coach, any player will tell you that you cannot say that it was one call that came down to the end of the game. At the end of the day, you got to take responsibility for the game and say, yeah, we had a couple chances that we should have capitalized on. Maybe you need to cover Clefbaum better there on the points where he doesn't get that goal at the end of the third period. So 51 seconds, he had 51 seconds left in the game to close it out, and they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's funny, right? I mean, on the other end of this, the Oilers have been on this side, that side, 51 seconds, 9 seconds, whatever it is, a number of times over the past couple of years, past 12 years, with the exception of 1 year. And so I can understand, right? Like it's a tough one. It's a tough way to come out of a game with 51 seconds left, and then we lost one to Anaheim in the same manner. I guess I guess at the end of the day, right? Both teams are they're having not great seasons. The Oilers are having a better season than they were last year, I'd have to say, but the team itself, I think right now is just they're I see we've got if you're on Periscope tonight or on Twitter, locating Oils on there. I saw him tweeting about the Oilers being a little bit more of a boring team to watch now that Hitchcock is behind the bench. Be curious, what's your thought on this? What's your thought on the Oilers? I mean, you don't get to watch them every game, so or I don't think you watch them every game. What's your thought on their play? Was it boring? Was it
Let's just say it reminded me of a past Blues team, just because that is the way that Ken Hitchcock likes to coach his teams, and it was apparent tonight. This was the first full game I've watched of the Oilers since Ken Hitchcock took over. I've cut some pieces here and there, but watching the play in the neutral zone, definitely a slower game. You mentioned it on my show last night, Michael, that you still got Connor McDavid, who's going to blow you with speed. Doesn't matter what system you run, he's going to be out there skating as hard as he can, as fast as he can, which is the fastest in the league. But outside of that, you can definitely tell there's an east-west type style to the game, not a north-south. And Hitchcock always preaches the 200-foot game. And I think you saw that a lot. I mean, there was a play where Tarasenko, and again, maybe this is a common play for McDavid, but there was a play where Tarasenko skated in late in the third period, had a real good chance to skate in from the wing and take a good shot on goal. And McDavid came back and back-checked and pulled him right off the puck. He couldn't even get a shot off. So that's the type of play that you're going to get out of a Ken Hitchcock coach team. And I appreciate it. I've played hockey my whole life. I've always been a defenseman. I actually like the defensive games. I think they're more exciting. I think when goalies are standing on their heads, that's exciting. And I thought both goalies had a really good game tonight. I know Cam Talbot's had his struggles this season, but I was impressed by his game. And again, I thought defensively, the whole team for the Oilers looked very good tonight. And again, I'm not shocked by that, because when Ken Hitchcock came in and started coaching the Blues, I mean, it was a night and day difference within a week of him taking over. And I think we're starting to see that a little bit in Edmonton.
Yeah, absolutely. 5-2-1 now under Hitchcock. It's a nice change of pace for the Oilers to start winning some games. digging some out like that, especially after that slow start for them to come back. I know it wasn't great for your team, but great for us. We have a Caps fan listening live tonight at Sport Major. He goes by. He says Maroon missed 3 chances tonight. What's been your take on Maroon this year? I mean, he's had a bit of a tough go. You got a deal on him. You like having him on the team? What's your feeling with Maroon?
Well, I will say that I've known his brother for a little bit, Mr. Phil Maroon, and
Nice.
so I was excited to because I've played hockey with Phil, and I've actually even played with Pat a little bit, being a St. Louis boy, and it was exciting. It was probably, to me, the Ryan O'Reilly trade was a huge deal here in St. Louis for obvious reasons, but the signing of Pat Maroon. In the middle of, I believe it was late July, early August when it happened. I mean, that's the dead time for hockey in St. Louis. That's Cardinals baseball time. So bringing him in was massive. I mean, that brought such an outcry from Blues fans. And I think he came out and threw the first pitch at a Cardinals game recently. His son goes to school where my wife teaches. And everyone's just been so excited to have him back in St. Louis. And I'm sure you remember the game that he scored with the Edmonton Oilers against the Blues in St. Louis, and his son was at the game, and he started shedding a tear after the game when he saw his son reacting to his goal. I mean, it was a big deal having him come home, and he's not lived up to the hype, unfortunately. A lot of it might be the system. Mike Yo's system before he was let go was kind of a predictive system that defenses could easily hone in on and say, okay, they're going to pass the puck up the board, dump it into the corner, send their speedy guy after the puck. I mean, it was the same thing every time, but Berube kind of is coaching a little faster pace style, which is great. But Maroon just, he's a little slow in the feet. He's got good hockey sense. He goes to the right areas, but it's just not happening for him. And again, with the speed of the game, it's making it that much more difficult for him to find the back of the net. I think if he was to pot a couple goals here and there in the next couple weeks, I think it'll get his confidence back. But right now, he just does not look like the same guy that we saw in Edmonton, Anaheim, and New Jersey.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's safe to say from what I've seen of him, the small sample size. How about in terms of what I've seen anyway? Sorry, it's not. He's been obviously with the team all season. What about Perron? I mean, there's another guy spent some time in Edmonton. What's your thought on him?
So I'll be honest with you. I thought this was his quietest game of the season. I hardly noticed him when he was on the ice. I even said in the second period, is Perron even playing tonight? What happened to him? Because he's actually had I think a very good start to the year. I was, again, going back to when he was signed, that was kind of the joke going into the offseason was, Doug Armstrong's big offseason is going to be re-signing Ian Cole, David Perron, and Paul Stastny, guys that he had traded away. But and then he signs Perron in the first hour of free agency, and all of St. Louis was, oh, my God, that's really going to happen? But then all the other changes started happening. We started seeing, again, the O'Reilly trade, Bozak being signed, and a couple other additions here and there. And we started thinking, okay, you know what? Maybe he's got a different cast of characters than this year. It's going to be a different story. And he's coming off a great year in Vegas. And really, he has played very well to start the year. He's always had a soft spot in my heart. Just because he came up with those young Blues teams in the mid-2000s, and he's a guy that's always worked his tail off. He takes the offensive zone penalty here and there, but it's a trade-off for his hard work. So I think, again, he's had a great start to the year, but this was just, I think, an off game for him, which is going to happen. But you got to figure if he had turned it on there in the third period and made a difference-making play like we've seen him make a couple times this year, maybe the outcome of that game is a little different.
Yeah, no, you're right. He's I've always kind of had a soft spot for Perron. He's one of those guys that kind of gets in your face. He kind of is a bit annoying, and and I didn't mind him. I always hated playing against him.
Yeah,
So we've got are you on the Periscope, by the way?
of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So a couple people asking, what I've heard Mike Yao is an asshole. What's your thoughts there? Have you heard anything about him? Obviously, you know a couple people around the team. What's your thought on Yao?
To be honest, that's really not what I've heard. I've heard that it's more of a he's actually a very nice guy, almost to a fault, to where he kind of lets people kind of tell him how it is rather than him telling them how how he wants to coach the game. Again, maybe he had a couple. I know he had a couple run-ins in Minnesota with the whole Adam Oates situation. But yeah, here in St. Louis, I had never heard anything about that, and I had met him one time. Very nice guy, always very pleasant with the media. But the issues didn't lie, I don't think, in his personality. It was in his style.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing, Sport Major says, how's Zach Sanford been since the trade with the Caps?
So Zach Sanford was injured almost the entire year last year, like Robbie Fabry. Unfortunately, he could not get healthy. He came back about January and just didn't look right. So they shut him down the rest of the year and just said, okay, yeah, you're going to come back in October fully healthy. And you know what he did? He shot out pretty good in preseason. But the issue was with all the signings the Blues made, they just didn't have room for him. So they sent him down to the San Antonio Rampage of the AHL to start the year. And then he came up. I want to say it was an injury to Fabry or Steen. One of those guys got hurt, and he came up. And I mean, again, this is a guy that the Blues hadn't really seen play in 2 years since Mike Yo's first year behind the bench, and he looked great. I mean, he's fit in well in a top 9 role. Again, I mean, I would be surprised if these injuries they all start healing up and coming back, and maybe you got to send Sanford back down again. But he's been impressive. I've been a big fan of his. Again, he's a guy that has a great work ethic. He's never given up on pucks in the corner. They've thrown him on the top line with Tarasenko and O'Reilly, and he's looked comfortable there. Him and Perron have actually found some good chemistry.
Yeah.
But again, with all the injuries, it's just been, okay, we got to try and level out the talent here. So he's kind of bounced up and down the lineup, but for the most part, I think he's looked great, and I think he's going to be a mainstay on this roster as long as there's a couple injuries here and there.
So, Locating Oil wants your Twitter handle. I don't know if I should give it to him, but I'm giving it to him anyway. It's jponder94. Sorry about that, by the way. The one thing you want to stay away from is Oilers Twitter. Curious. We're talking a lot of Blues, and I hope listeners are all right with that. It's good to have kind of a different outlook from somebody else that's not purely watching Oilers hockey. One of the things I'm kind of curious about is from the outside looking in. I mean, what's your view on this Oilers team? I mean, you've been a hockey fan obviously for a long time. The struggles we've gone through. Without me sort of putting you one way or the other, what's your thought? If you had to make some changes, or you think, what's the core difficulty facing this team and the lack of success we've had over the past dozen years?
Well, from what I've seen, obviously you've got a cornerstone piece there in McDavid and Draisaitl. I thought at the time the Lucic signing, like probably many Oilers fans, that's a great signing. You need a good veteran guy that can, be there for McDavid and pot some goals and be his defender. But at the same time, that has not worked out. So you got a lot of salary tied up there. How many more years does he have left on that deal?
I don't know, like 20.
Oh, yeah. That's a shame. Well, we have Jay Bomeister. Maybe we can make a swap here.
Don't joke. I mean, there's probably Oilers fans like, what? Can we call somebody? How do we get that to happen? Yeah. So, Hey, good call on the Lucic thing. We talked about this last night on your show. Hitchcock calls that the identity line. Old Blues guy Brodziak on there with Cassian and Lucic. Your thoughts on that line tonight?
I thought they looked great. I thought Brodziak, he's just a guy that I'm not sure if Oilers fans are aware, but he played on the fourth line in St. Louis for some time, and I thought, okay, this guy's a mainstay here, and he was the whole time he was here. But last year, when the Blues were still fighting for a playoff spot, but Paul Stastny was traded to Winnipeg because they knew they had to get something for him because the plan originally was to not bring him back, which they ended up not doing. They actually had quite the hole there in the second line behind Braden Shen, and they moved Brodziak up pretty much the rest of the year on the second line. And that sounds probably shocking to some of you who are used to watching Brodziak this season, but he looked great. I mean, he was a little slow. He's a little bit behind the play, but he's a good defensive two-way forward. And honestly, he's got some skill. If I remember correctly, when he was drafted, he was expected to be a top two center on really any team with some good size down the middle. So yeah, he's got skill, and he's a smart hockey player. He's always in the right spot. You never see him getting caught out of position, and he's always there to support his teammates too. So if the line last year was him, Upshaw, and Dmitry Yashkin, which every one of those guys has been moved out since. But honestly, it was a great line to watch because Upshaw had some speed, and then Brodziak was bringing the grit down the middle, and Yashkin was a guy who would never give up in the corner. So those three guys were so good at just keeping the puck hemmed in the zone, and they were always out there against the scoring lines, and they would keep the puck off their sticks, which is what you want. And I think you're seeing that a little bit with your new identity line. Maybe it's a Hitchcock thing, I don't know, but yeah, that line looked good tonight. I thought Lucic, again, I think that's a good spot for him. It's just unfortunate he's making what he's making for you.
Yeah.
But he looked great. And I think if that's a line going forward that they can keep together, that's a solid checking line there for you throw out there. And then if they can keep the puck in the zone, keep it going when McDavid gets back on the ice, you're going to land a couple goals.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's pretty safe. Beer League Hero, Kelly from Beer League Heroes. He's Oilers blogger and regular guest on the Oilerslive and Heavy Hockey podcast. He says, he said that we talk about McDavid and Leon playing 29 minutes tonight. Your thoughts on that? Guys play 29 minutes, and it just feels like you see them all the time. Of course, you always notice McDavid. He could play 5 minutes, and you'd think he was playing the whole game. Just because he's that noticeable when he's got the puck. Your thoughts on that? I mean, do you feel like Oilers are overplaying those guys, or what was your thought?
I think if you do that 82 games a season, yeah, they're going to get worn down. You're not going to see it. But in a game like this where you're playing a team that you pretty much have to beat at this point, you're on the road, you're playing against a team not only that's below you in the standings and trying still to, basically not admitting defeat yet. And then they have the injuries they have. Pietrangelo, your number one defenseman's out. Fabry, the goal scorer, is out. Schwartz, the goal scorer, is out. You got to take advantage of these kind of games. And when they're down 2-0 early in the game, you think, oh boy, we got to get something. We got to get something cooking. And I actually was okay seeing them. Okay for the Oilers, not on the Blues side. I was okay seeing them out there for as much as they were. Again, I think when it's 2-1, especially, you're looking at it. This is a game that we can come back and at least force overtime. The Blues have been known to collapse in the third period, and I think that that was Hitchcock kind of smelling blood, throwing those two out there, and you saw it. You saw the fear, I think, a little bit in Craig Berube, and he's done this a couple times, which I actually like. At the start of overtime, putting two defensemen out there when they're both out there, because it's those guys are going to take the puck and they're going to try to jam it down our throats. We need two defensemen out there to try and stop them. And you saw Joel Edmondson have a couple nice plays there on McDavid in overtime. So, I think as long as it's working, you got to keep going with it. But, obviously if you're up a goal, if you're up 2 goals, give them a couple more shifts off, lower those minutes. It's only December. You don't want to run them ragged yet. But I think when it's a close game and you feel like you could easily come back and get yourself a W, or at worst get a point out of the game, I think it's okay to throw them out there every other shift and have them try and do something special.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement on that. It is when it's an 82 game season, though. You don't want to see it every night, but certainly in a night like tonight, you want your best guys out there as much as possible. And obviously McDavid's back to form. No flu setting in, which is nice for the Oilers. I'm going to open up the phone lines now. I don't know. I hope he calls in tonight. But we've got Jeff Nash. He goes by @_rinks, and he does a little Twitter thing that is or Twitter, sorry, YouTube. It's called Rinks Around the League, and hopefully he calls in. What he does is he's profiling all of the rinks in the NHL. And so far, if you go to his YouTube channel, you'll have to search Rinks Around the League, I think, right now. But he's done 5 or 6 rinks so far, like Little Caesars Arena, Joe Louis Arena, Nationwide, Pepsi Center, and does a neat little thing on them. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Jeff's had an opportunity to get to a number of places there. He has called in, so let's get Jeff on the show. Just hold on. Jeff, you there?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for joining. So 2 Jeffs. I'll call you Nash, and what do you go by, Ponder? Jeff, do you ever go by Ponder or Ponzi? What's your hockey name?
You gotta love the hockey name. I actually, on the rink, I go by Ponzi, but you can call me Ponder. You can call me JP, whatever you're comfortable with.
All right.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a hockey thing. You go by the last name. I usually go by Nasher, but first name is Jeff too. So it's definitely a hockey thing.
Hey, Nasher's cool. My last name's Bear. The best I ever got was Bear, but that's not bad. I guess. That's not bad. Yeah. Jeff, quick before you get into anything else, what's your thoughts on the game tonight?
I did actually manage to catch the game tonight, and kind of like what you guys were saying, I was a little nervous going down 2-0, and I was really pulling for Talbot. He's a great guy off the ice, and you feel for him because he's just an all-around great guy, and he's been struggling this year. And you're just hoping for him to rebound and get a good game. And when you were down 2-0, you're kind of like, oh crap, like here we go again. But you know what? He stuck with it, and the team eventually got through it. And you could see St. Louis kind of starting to cave a little bit, and then we, just a couple lucky things here and there, and we managed to get it to a shootout. And then, unfortunately for the Blues, the Oilers in overtime, and only once in the shootout this year. But we're pretty lethal in the overtime. So once we got to the overtime, I pretty much thought we had it in the bag.
You guys think that the scouting report had to be on Allen for the shootout. I know they were different dekes, but they kind of had a little bit of the same flavor. Wait them out and then shoot obviously high. Those were 2 sick shootouts in my mind by Nuge and McDavid. McDavid, when he, usually we talk about his speed, but he took his time on that and was surgical. Sorry for bringing that up, Jeff. Well,
no,
not that story.
That's a heck of a goal there by Nuge. I thought that was just a beautiful play to wait him out. And honestly, I think the MO on Allen is actually just to skate in and take a wrist shot and beat him before he gets set. So I was actually kind of surprised when Nugent Hopkins skated in and waited him out. I thought, this is going to play in Allen's favor. But I mean, he waited perfect amount of time, threw it over his pad, and then McDavid, as you said, is just surgical. I mean, he's 7 for 13 now. I mean, it's ridiculous what the kind of skill that guy can have one-on-one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Nuge had a really strong game. I would say he was arguably the best Oiler on the ice tonight. He had a very strong game tonight. I thought McDavid was good when he needed to be, but obviously he's still affected by whatever illness is going. He wasn't doing end-to-end rushes like we normally see him here in Edmonton, but Nuge had a strong game. So we had 2 sharpshooters going on him in the shootout tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, I want to, while we've got you on the air, because I haven't had a chance to interview you on the pod yet, maybe tell the people listening tonight a little bit about rinks around the league, how that came about. Let Mr. Ponder know as well. I mean, I'm curious. So you've obviously had a chance to visit a number of rinks, if not all of them. I don't know, but tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Sure, absolutely. And then I'll end it with a question for Jeff, because since he's in St. Louis, I have a question for him about that rink, because there have been changes to that rink. But anyways, yeah, Rinks Around the Ring League is a YouTube series that debuts every Monday, and I go through every single rink in the NHL. And a little background on me: I've worked for Hockey Canada, and I actually worked for the Oilers for 5 years as a manager of video production. And while traveling with the team, I was able to luckily visit every single rink in the NHL, and I just took really a lot of interest into learning about each rink, because as a player growing up, the barn or the rink was the world of the town that I grew up in Edmonton. Rexall Place was the hallowed ground of everything that was hockey in Alberta, really. So what happened was I took photos of every single rink, and I took them in the same spot in every rink. And when I developed them and put them around my desk, often people would come by and ask, oh, geez, that's so cool. Like, which one's your favorite? And I always often told them, like, well, it's hard to really say, because I have my favorite ones, but it's kind of like food and music. It's all subjective. My top 5 rinks are definitely not someone else's top 5 rinks, and we would get talking about each one, and I kind of wanted to start the series because of that, to show that really every single rink, no matter how empty it is, has unique characteristics. And you know what? Even before I started working for the Oilers, I had no idea even what the rink looked like on the outside. I didn't know where half the rinks were. Like Raleigh, North Carolina, I didn't really know where that was until you actually Google it, and you're like, oh, okay, there's Raleigh, North Carolina, and they have a rink in the middle of nowhere. So I wanted to kind of do a series to kind of go over every single rink, show NHL fans where it is, what it looks like from the outside, inside, and then I give a little bit of my take on it, what I like about it, what I don't like about it. And Jeff, while you're on the line, I'll ask you about St. Louis, because they went through some pretty major renovations over the summer. I know it's been going through multiple stages. The scoreboard, I think, went in last year, but a new paint scheme, new seats. Have you been in a new building, and what's your take on the changes that have happened?
Well, I mean, again, this, like you said, everyone teach their own, I guess. I am a fan of it. There's a lot of people who don't like it. So when the arena was built back in 1995, they had the walls. I mean, and it was fine. It was meant to be more than just a hockey arena, but they had painted a lot of the walls purple on the inside of the rink, and a lot of the seats were purple. Well, they finally got rid of those and made it more of a gray color scheme, which I actually think is more appeasing to the eye, because it's just, I thought it was it's just a weird color for a team called the St. Louis Blues to have purple all over their rinks. So they changed that up, and the scoreboard's phenomenal. I have actually been lucky enough to go on the field where the Dallas Cowboys play and see that monstrosity of a scoreboard. So I've seen, as big as they can get. That's about as big as I would want in NHL scoreboard. I think it looks fantastic. The LCD screens are just phenomenal. The ribbons they put in a couple years ago, it's just a nice touch. And the outside of the arena looks beautiful too. Enterprise Rent-A-Car is obviously the company that took over the naming rights, and I don't know, Scott Trade. It was just I kind of felt like I think it was Savis before that. They just kind of plastered Scott Trade over it. Enterprise actually jumped in and kind of made it their own. They added green lights on the outside. The logo is nice and big in the front. And I just think it looks like you look at it and you say, that is the home of a hockey team. As weird as that sounds, because I think with Scott Trade, it was more of a, yep, there's the big arena. There it is. This one, I think you can look at it and say, that's where the St. Louis Blues play.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. So unfortunately on my episode in St. Louis, I'm kind of doing an alphabetical order, except I'm old school and I put Arizona as Phoenix Coyotes. So I'm going to get to that. I know. I'm going to get that later in the year here. But when I get to St. Louis, I do some cool photos and stuff like that. They're going to be all outdated. But yeah, it's a good rink. St. Louis is kind of an underrated city. I enjoyed going there. The City Museum, if you haven't gone, is really cool. Some great places to eat. So it's kind of got a rough edge to it, kind of like Edmonton. But I always enjoyed going to St. Louis when I had the chance.
Yeah, Sorry, I got a couple of fellow Let's Go Blues radio listeners actually here in the Periscope. So look out. They think they're hilarious, but they're really not. But no, hey, yeah, City Museum. If you're ever in town, that's a beautiful spot to go, especially if you have kids. It's a lot of fun. You could spend all day there. And I always say that about my city. I love hearing it from other people. I've had people from LA come in and say, I always hear all these bad things about St. Louis. It's actually a pretty nice city. And I'm like,
it's probably like Edmonton. It's probably a little nicer in the summertime than it is in the winter, but you know what? Hey, it's got some great hockey in it.
Yeah, I think so. And the Blues have built. They're building right now a 3 sheets of ice out in one of the county spots that it was just kind of farmland for, and it's going to have an outdoor rink, and it's a big deal. That's coming up next year, so we're excited. Hockey is definitely growing. Just a couple of years ago, there was I can't remember the exact number, but I think there was 5 or 6 St. Louis kids drafted in the first round. Matthew Kitchuk was one of them. Clayton Keller was another. So yeah, hockey's growing out here. It's becoming a nice little hockey town, and I think I can speak for all of St. Louis when I say that a lot of us have been waiting for that, and we're finally getting to a point now where I think you can kind of put us with the big dogs in America in terms of hockey cities.
So you get one warning: you're not allowed to mention Matthew Kitchuk again.
You know what? Consider it done. I'll just talk about his dad.
Yeah. Especially his dad. Wow. All right. Who's Locating Oil keeps talking about hockey is lit guy. Who is this guy? Is he why do I not know this?
So you might not remember it, but it was back when the Blues and the Blackhawks were playing in the playoffs, and Tony X, the name was just mentioned there by Mr. Blues Hat, in the Periscope if you're watching that. He was a guy that basically he was looking for, I think, the Cardinals game, and the hockey game was on. It was Game 7 of the Blues and Blackhawks first round series, and he was basically tweeting. He was live tweeting his reaction to the first time ever watching hockey. And I remember this. Yeah, and I'll try to keep it PG, but one of my favorite lines was when the Blackhawks were down by a goal, so they pulled their goalie, and he tweets out, "So wait, the goalie just said F it and left?" I mean, if you go back to the first night of tweets watching the Blues, oh my gosh, he was killing it. People just thought he was hilarious, and he was. And he still tweets. Actually, he has a sports podcast now about St. Louis sports, and talks about the Blues quite a bit. He's a big Blues fan now. So, again, it just shows you how much the sport's growing.
Yeah. And you know what? That's great to hear. I've been to a number of hockey cities, maybe a few less than Mr. Nash here. But I've found one of the great places, actually, surprise, is Dallas. Is probably one of
Yes.
my favorite hockey cities outside of Canada. But it's good to hear St. Louis is it's growing there, and it sounds. I mean, the thing is most people you talk to, if they haven't seen a hockey game and they go out and they watch one. And I've got friends and colleagues in the U.S. that they just can't believe it's how amazing it is that these guys are flying around on skates and hitting each other, and they're able to do what they do. And they haven't even, most of them haven't even seen McDavid yet. So absolutely amazing. It's a great sport, as the three of us know. I've got a charity game coming up on Sunday, Ponder, in Edmonton on the practice ice where the Oilers play before the Battle of Alberta, which is a big deal for us here. And Nasher's on my team. It's going to be Team Heavy Hockey, which is the name of the recorded pod I do. And we're going to be playing against Team Mega Thread. Tell me a little bit, Nash, I don't know, are you sticking around for a bit? Or?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to, speaking of the charity game, I have an 11:30, believe it or not, 11:30 game to play tonight. In preparation for the charity game.
Nice,
so
yeah.
I will throw my shout out to our team, and I'm really excited, looking forward to it. The community rink is a good rink, and hopefully we can entice some fans to come over early before that Battle of Alberta to come watch us. But I just want to throw a shout out to you for organizing it. It's pretty impressive for a guy who doesn't even live in the city to arrange all that. And thanks for doing that. And I'm going to go and try to get my legs back before Sunday. And Jeff, thanks for chatting with me about St. Louis. Best of luck the rest of the way. I think you guys have as much challenge as we do in terms of our team right now. But good luck the rest of the way. And I'll sign off now, but I'll call in a little later. And Michael, I'll see you on Sunday.
You bet. Yeah. Thanks for calling in. And again, to anybody listening, rinks around the league, watch it on YouTube. Really great. And of course, the video production is A1. It's about 20 times better than anything you'll see here on Oilerslive. And no, you're doing a great job. I look forward to watching the videos, and go and subscribe. Most importantly. And while you're at it, subscribe to my YouTube channel too. I need 100 subscribers so I can change the name.
Hey, me too.
yeah, we're in the same boat.
Let's have a friendly race to see who can get to 100 first. I think you may beat me though. I don't know. We'll see.
I think I'm only at about 40 or 50, but I think I'm gonna.
We're neck and neck.
Yeah, we're neck and neck. So anyway, get out there and watch. And most importantly, watch the videos. That's why we do these things. Just to have some fun, and people are interacting. That's what we certainly all know. There's no money in it, so
absolutely,
we do it so people can enjoy. And thanks again for calling, and good luck tonight, and get those skating legs.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna play a trap game on Sunday. So.
a lot of hang back defense, a lot of Hitchcock like hockey. We'll put it that that.
The dump and chill is what I like to call it, and that's what we're gonna be doing.
All right, good night, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Good night.
Good night. So if anybody wants to call in, I know it's long distance, but we've got some St. Louis Blues folks out there. You can call us at 587-907-LIVE, which is 587-907-5483. Call in. Let's have a chat. Feel free to tell us. I know one of your folks is already piped up on Twitter to say, how do you feel about the refs giving you the win tonight? so feel free to call in and tell us what you mean by that, because obviously from my vantage point that's not the way it happened, but it's I'm sure you and Ponder feel feel like maybe that I think so. if Oilers fans are looking at this game with any rational attitude, which if you're on Twitter, then odds are it's probably not rational at all. But if you're looking at, it was Mr. Blues hat that said that, yeah. So if you are looking at the game tonight as an Oilers fan, you're probably saying to yourself, "It's about damn time we got some calls." Now we're sorry, Mr. Blues hat, that was against your team, and I would be happy to say there's no doubt it seemed a little bit more favorable to the Oilers tonight for a change for us, and I'm happy to get. I'm happy to get that. I know it's at the expense of your team tonight, but a guy that like me and a lot of the fans that watch McDavid night in and night out, Clefbaum holding on to O'Reilly. That's the kind of thing that happens to McDavid on a nightly basis. In fact, you go through my Twitter feed and there's somebody made a nice little YouTube video, and it is it's sick that the league, and maybe you guys experienced this with Tarasenko. Let me know. I mean, you got a guy with that kind of skill level that darts in and darts out at players. Guys are going to hook and hold. I just wish the league would turn around and call a penalty a penalty. Night in, night out. It seems like we're getting different calls every night. It's like you said, the game was called tight all night, and you don't call that. I'd be pissed off if I was a Blues fan. I'd be pissed off in overtime. Right, even it up. Right, you give one guy a penalty, and I'd be pissed off.
No, you're right, and but again, like I said earlier, I mean, it you can look at it that way, or you can look at it and say that game shouldn't have gotten overtime. Blues should have capitalized on a couple chances there. I mean, I think Eddie Olczyk on the U.S. broadcast even said that it should have been 6-0 after that first period. Cam Talbot came up huge, but you can't always say, well, we just ran into a hot goalie. Eventually, you just have to find a way to beat them. And again, the Braden Shen penalty in overtime, that's just a stupid play. And there's multiple times the Blues turn the puck over in their zone. And you can point to those and say, hey, you don't turn that puck over, you get it out. Maybe you got a scoring chance going the other way. So, and you can look at it too and say that, it's an 82-game season. It's going to level out. At the end of the year last year, for any Oilers fans who might remember this, the Blues, it came down to the last game against the Colorado Avalanche. And there was an offside call, or actually it was a goal. And clearly everyone in St. Louis was shouting at their TV saying, that's offsides, that's offsides. They review it. They say there's not conclusive evidence that it was offsides. I still say you go back and you look at the picture and you can see white between the puck and the blue line, but that's neither here nor there. And the Blues lose that game. And a lot of people are saying, well, we got jobbed by the referees. Well, you know what? There was a couple times I could point to earlier in the season where the Blues came out on the better end of the stick from the referees making calls going their way. So it's an 82-game season. The Blues are going to get a break here or there.
Yeah.
It's just, it happens to every team, and you can't dwell on poor officiating and say that's the cause for the end of a game. At the end of the day, you just gotta take responsibility and say, hey, you know what? We're a 20-man team. Somebody should have stepped up and made the big play when we needed it.
Yeah. I just want to say you're way too rational about this.
Too many years. With
I mean,
friend.
you're right. You're right. There's no doubt you're right, but you're way too rational. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt that at the end of the day, I mean, Oilers fans will complain about the officiating night in, night out, but it doesn't escape the fact that the Oilers just haven't been good enough to win games on a consistent basis. And let's be real, right? If you're a good team, you get calls, right?
Yep.
And that's just the way it works. And the Oilers haven't had, they just haven't been consistent enough. Maybe this is a sign. I don't know, but Do you know Gland or no? Who? Mr. Pornbot.
Yes, he's
Damn
actually
Pornbot, but
he
Mr. Blues
has been on my show multiple times,
yeah.
so he just thinks he's hilarious.
All right. Well, Mr. Blues Hat, feel free to call in 587-907 live 587-907-5483. It's my show now, so if he if he wants to join, he's more than welcome. I was going with ahead with something, and I couldn't. Now I've lost my train of thought. Oh crap! Oh man, that's the problem with live. I can't even edit it out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we know the feeling. We a lot of times we've had one of our hosts will drop out of the show, and it'll be like, "What do we do now? We're live. We got to do something."
Yeah, I know. You kind of go blank, and I mean, I go blank on a regular occurrence, but it is it is what it is, right?
That's right.
Kurt Price. I assume he's one of the regular hosts. Is he on your
Yes.
show? Yes. All right.
Yes, he's the main voice you'll hear on the show normally.
Yeah. So, guys, anyone out there listening in Oilers land or Blues land, anybody probably from Blues land, they already know. But Jeff Ponder and a number of the other, there's two other guys, I believe. They do their own live post game show, and you guys are great. As I said last night when we recorded the pod, I mean, you guys have a good show, and you're not going to make a habit, of course, of listening to other teams' podcasts, but I've had over the course of the past year, I've had a number of podcasters from other teams, and everybody's got their own different style, but I really like what you guys are doing, and all of it grows the game, which at the end of the day is probably most important. We talked a little bit about Seattle. I just remember what I was thinking about. You said a little while back, or about 5 minutes ago, you were talking about offsides. Now, take a little informal poll on the Periscope or YouTube chat, wherever you are right now. I don't know many Canadians that say that plural. Now, I've heard a lot of Americans say offsides, and I might be wrong, and maybe I'm in the wrong here, but I think most Canadians say offside, singular. And I'm quite curious if you chime in. I know there's a number of Oilers fans there on YouTube and other things right now. Chime in. What's your thought is it offsides plural? Offside singular. Maybe we got some St. Louis Blues fans that are listening in. What do you say? What do you normally hear, Jeff? Is it offside?
I think we typically hear offsides, but just going off my gut, I would think it's probably because we're conditioned with the NFL. I believe the NFL calls it offsides.
Okay.
So that's probably where that comes from.
So I was in San Jose. I've been to San Jose, the SAP Center, a few times, and there were these guys locating oil says offside. What's wrong with these guys? I don't know. They're Blues fans. You can't help it.
Yeah, what do you know? We're in the Midwest. We don't know anything.
That's right. I was in San Jose at the SAP Center, and this guy's yelling behind me, "That's offsides! That's offsides!" I'll tell you, it was driving me nuts. But I've come to realize that there are a lot of Americans that say offsides, and maybe you're right. I've never confirmed. I'll have to look at a rule book. Here, Mr. Blue sat. A person is offside. The call is offsides. So this is a good debate.
Yeah, you may have to look at like a USA Hockey or NHL.com or something and find a rule book that says how they word it.
Yeah, so Dursa Mike, who is we like to call him Mega Thread Mike Dursa, he just said he's got to finish your Twitter thought there, Mike, and then we'll read it. By the way, Mike is the captain of the opposing team.
Oh boy!
In the Oilerslive Cup team Mega Thread.
Are you gonna run him?
Oh, you guarantee it. I'm planning on dropping the gloves right off the face-off.
There you go. I love it.
It's going to be some good old-fashioned jersey, and there's no tie-downs in this league. Let me tell you.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's trouble. Okay, so here during the Oilers Hurricanes Cup run, the funniest thing was when a Canes fan said offsides is when a NASCAR hits the wall and the sides come off. All right, so there are two sides to the blue line, says Kurt Price. All right, fair enough. Keep your head up. That's all right. We've been trying to chirp each other anyway, for the most part. To give you a little bit of background, Jeff, this charity game, it started probably in August. I thought, what's great. I'm an avid hockey fan and hockey player. I probably play five times a week, if I can.
Wow.
And so I love hockey. I love hockey at all costs, and love it so much that I thought it would be a great idea to arrange a hockey game with all the Twitter folks, Oilers Twitter folks. I figured it shouldn't be too hard to get 13 guys aside and a couple of goalies. And so I got Mike Dursa, who's commenting there. He runs what we call the Oilers mega thread. And it's basically he tags in anybody who's stupid enough to be tagged in prior to every game. And it begins this like notification explosion in your Twitter because it's like, I don't know how many people he's got in the mega thread, but there's probably 100 folks in there, and it's this constant thread that goes on. It's the Oilers mega thread. And I'm sure they do it for other things. It's probably not unique to the Oilers, but Mike handles that. So I thought it would be great if so I talked to Mike and I said, Mike, help me out with this game. Let's get some people involved. And he did. And so we started getting players. So that was step one. Step two, I thought, well, we've got the game. I've paid for the ice. We've got the game. Why don't we pick a charity? And one of our listeners, he goes by @Redistic. He's an autism parent, and he had a really touching story earlier this year where his son loves the car wash. And the car wash actually gave his child a uniform, which was outstanding, right? And
That's great.
Yeah, it was really great story, and everybody that knows Brandon, that's his name, he's a really good guy, and so we thought autism would be a great charity to support, and so we began that. To date, and we're a couple days away, so there's only been a few donations so far, but we've raised about $450 is the total I got earlier today, so it's just a start. But we've got 120 people signed up to be fans, and then the players on the ice. So it's going to be a fun day, and then once we're done the hockey game, we're going to go for a little after party, and then after that, we're going to hit the hockey game. Some of us, which is as we mentioned, the Battle of Alberta, where a certain St. Louis Blues or St. Louis kid will be playing. Hopefully, we see him get lit up and tagged a couple times. I might wear a Flames jersey and a Ninja Turtles hat because the guy turtles like nobody I've ever seen before. So we're I would never in my lifetime be caught dead wearing a Flames jersey. In fact, one day, I've got a daughter. One day, one of my friends thought it would be funny if he sent her home in a Flames shirt.
Oh boy.
Anyway, I don't talk to him anymore.
Good. Not really a friend.
Yeah, not really. Yeah, I still talk to him, but I did burn the shirt. So anyway, that's what we're doing this Sunday, and you know what, you guys should do the same in St. Louis. Do a Let's Go Blues Radio Cup and you should get enough guys together. I love traveling for hockey. So if you ever make that happen, you let me know. I'll be there.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
we actually have always, and first of all, as a parent of a child with Down syndrome, that definitely does ring true with me. That's an awesome story. I love hearing that. But yeah, actually, every year we run a tournament for my father, hockey tournament for leukemia awareness, and he passed about 3 years ago from leukemia. And yeah, we keep it in his name. His name was Stanley Ponder, so we call it, of course, the Stanley Ponder Cup.
Nice.
And yeah, it's become a really fun event, and it's even gotten to the point now where the players that win it, they actually take it home they win the cup, they take it home with them. I can't even get it from them to get it engraved, and they drink out of it. They post Facebook pictures with it. They take it places.
Nice.
I got one of the captain of the team that won last year holding the cup while he's power washing his house.
Oh.
And I'm just like, you better not drop that, buddy.
That's yeah. Well, the Stanley Cup's been dropped a few times too, and certainly worth a little bit. You know what? That's
true.
awesome, and I always think it's amazing when people and fans of a sport get together. Blues fans, Oilers fans, all great hockey fans, and the fact that we could be here tonight and have you on live, that's great. I think we're going to wrap up here right away. I'm going to leave the lines up. You and I we'll go till about 10:45 Mountain if we don't get any callers. But last chance, 587-907-LIVE. So that's 587-907-5483. If you're a St. Louis Blues fan, I was going to say we'd love to hear from you. I don't know if that's right, the words for it, but please do call in and we'll at least chat with you.
I was going to say, not all Blues fans are as rational as I am.
There we go. Yeah. That's why be careful what you wish for, right?
Right.
Yeah. But no, you know what? This is to be frank, right? As Canadians, we often make fun of our American hockey fans and friends as because you're in short supply in a lot of markets,
Right.
and so to hear that the game is alive and well, and guys like you are out there playing it, and even a leukemia tournament for in honor of your father, these are great things. I'm a as I said, I'm not just a fan of the game. I love to play it, and to me, this is the greatest game in the world. I think you probably agree. You podcast about it. It's certainly one of the fastest games that you can watch. Who was it tonight that got in overtime got the puck in the ankle? That
was Bortuzzo.
Yeah, Bortuzzo. Anyway. I've been watching this game since I was, old enough to walk. And I've still, to this day, I mean, we've all, and you play defense, I play defense. You get a puck in the ankle, you skate it off. There's no, in fact, when I was, I think about 7 or 8, I had a coach say, unless if your ankle is broken, you better skate off, right? You see something like that happen in any other game. Let's not talk about soccer, but in any other game, and people don't do that. These guys are tough players. They're out there every night, and you and I get a puck in the ankle. It's from a beer league guy. If you've ever seen a NHL caliber slap shot, it's that's gonna hurt. Granted, the defensemen have those plastic guards, but we've seen those broken how many times in games. So absolutely great. Let's Locating Oil says Brett Hull, the greatest Blue? ? Thoughts on that?
Oh boy, this is this is going to be a fun topic because you guys, I don't know what your feelings are on this, gentleman. This has been a topic on our show multiple times. And it's the guy that I say is a guy that has yet to have his number retired by the team, and I think it's a travesty, Chris Pronger. I honestly believe Chris Pronger was the most dominating player, with the outside of obviously Wayne Gretzky's 3 months, the most dominating player the Blues have ever had on their team. Brett Hull, yes, 86 goals, 100 points multiple times. Heck of a hockey player. It's a tight race, but when Chris Pronger, especially that year that he won the Hart and the Norris, I mean, the guy was on another level from everyone around him, even Al McInnes, who
You're really wearing out
is
your welcome here.
yeah, right.
No, you know what? Yeah, and whether we love him or hate him, Chris Pronger was one of a kind and a difference maker, right? Like,
Yes,
you
he
know,
was.
yeah, we only saw him for a short period of time, but there's no denying. You talk about tough hockey players. that man, that man was not just a good player, but a tough as nails hockey player. And yeah, I wouldn't have. I was trying to think myself. Mr. Blues hat says Gretzky. That's obvious. Maybe maybe the greatest to ever put on a Blues uniform. But
Yeah, that doesn't count.
that doesn't. Yeah, that doesn't really count. But Chris Pronger. Yeah, I wouldn't. I think that's a healthy debate. It's it's a lot like asking who's the best player in the world at any given time, right? There's always going to be a bit of a debate, and it's all good. But that's your guy, hey, Chris Pronger.
Chris Pronger,
Yeah,
yep. And I mean, and a lot of people have made the case that the greatest Blue of all time is Bernie Federko, Al McInnes, Brett Hull. They're all up there too. You could even, if you wanted to get crazy, you could even throw the late Pavel Dimitra up there. But yeah, Chris Pronger to me, for about 5 to 6 years, was the most dominant player on the ice every time the Blues played.
yeah, no, and Locating Oil also says I never thought the other team would score when he was on the ice, and that's true. I mean, yeah, he was unbelievable, really, in terms of like he's one of those guys that I couldn't imagine playing against. I would actually, as a forward, and we've played. I think you've played probably against great defensemen, as have I. Guys that are really tough. Some people, probably the toughest Oiler that I've heard to play against in terms of physical toughness right now is Larson. I've heard people complain about playing against Larson, but he, doesn't even. It's not even close to a
Yeah.
Pronger style player. Right now, who do you have a favorite player right now?
Oh man, the Blues people listen to this are not going to like this, but one of my favorites, and it's honestly because he's kind of a little bit of a throwback to the Chris Pronger type defenseman. Even though he's gotten a little older and he's had some injury problems, I've always been a big Shea Weber fan. And I'll be honest with you, my wife heard his name. She was not a big hockey fan. We were watching a series against the Red Wings a couple of years ago, and she heard his name and she saw him and she goes, that guy, verbatim, that guy's hot, that guy's awesome, and he's got the coolest name ever. And I said, well, if we ever have a kid, we'll name him Shea. A year later, she laughed, haha, very funny. A year later, I said, okay, you want to name our kid Shea? Sure. So
Nice.
she'll tell you that our kid is not named after Shea Weber, but tell me that that's not a story that tells you he was named after Shea Weber.
That's awesome. Yeah, he definitely he is a bit of a throwback player. You're right there. You know what? I think we're gonna close things up here right away. But I just want to say it's been great both meeting you the last couple days and chatting hockey with you. Can't say enough about how great it is to have you guys as part of the fan base in the NHL. Next time the Oilers play, I think we said was December 18th. The next time the two Oilers in St. Louis.
Yep, that's a very special day for you.
That's that is correct. Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, you probably still have time to get my birthday present in the mail. So December 18th, and I think if we can, It's not in stone, but would like to get you guys and not just yourself, but Kurt and some of the other guys on and do another joint live post game pod. I think this was fun. This is a good new format for me. I think we had some good response and some good people joining. But you talk to the guys, and let's make it happen.
Yeah, we'll get the conversation started. As I said, Kurt's sitting here watching this right now, and I can tell by the way he's interacting that he's enjoying this as well. So we'll have to definitely get on that, and if not the 18th, then later in the year. I think they might meet again in January or February. But yeah, we'll make that happen. That's a great idea.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you to everybody as well. I mean, you guys are very welcoming people. You Oilers fans, I never would have thought that was the case. I'm kidding. You're not Canucks fans.
Yeah.
But no, I want to thank you all for participating in the show. It was a lot of fun talking with everybody.
Yeah. All right. Stay on. I'm just going to we're going to end this one. Thanks everybody for listening. The podcast is recorded and will be up within the next few hours. And also will be available for rebroadcast on YouTube or Twitter. I think you can watch. Anyway, have a great night, and let's go Oilers.